Continuing our reading from Legion by Dan Abnett. Secrets and Lies from the Horus Heresy series. Coming from Chapter 4, House of the Hydra, Monlo Harbor, Nerth, Continuous. The pounding blood vessels in Grammaticus's head felt as if they were about to burst. His windpipe had closed. "Let me go," he sent desperately. The steeled glove had released its grip, and Grammaticus fell awkwardly onto the tile floor. Hurt and dazed, he forced his mind to work fast. His eyes were becoming accustomed to the cold blue darkness of the chamber. He could see a giant shadow of his captor and the hot red glow of a visor. But he could not read a mind. Something was screening it. Nevertheless, his urgent commands were getting through. "Step back. Keep your hands away from your weapons." The giant shadow above him took a step backwards. "Stop doing that," the shadow's deep voice growled. There was someone else in the room, in this bolt hole that had been not safe at all. Grammaticus saw the second person as a hooded figure, though he could not actually see the man with his eyes. The figure was hooded in his mind. Grammaticus tried to rise, a piercing liquid squeal like wet fingers sliding on glass stabbed into his neocortex. Pain fired through his autonomic nervous system and sizzled down his spine. He grunted and fell back against the wall. "He is fierce, strong, and well protected," the hooded figure said out loud. "Too much for you?" asked the giant shadow. "No." "Then keep him down." The squeal increased in power. Grammaticus convulsed. "We're going to have a conversation, John," the giant shadow said, bending down and looming close. "I want some truth out of you. Also help me. I'll simply crush your psych-cursed skull. Yes? Are we clear?" Grammaticus nodded. The agony was immense. He could feel blood running out of his nose and over his lip. "Good. Sheer is going to release you. That will be nice, won't it? When Sheer releases you, no mind tricks. Are we still clear?" "Yes," Grammaticus hissed, his throat bruised and sore. "Let him go, Sheer," the giant commanded. The squeal went away, and it took the worst of the pain with it. Grammaticus slumped forwards onto his hands, gasping. "Lights," the giant ordered. There was a brief pulse of telekinetic effect, and several dozen wax candles arranged around the room spontaneously lit. A decent pyrokinetic display. The light from the candles was soft and yellow. It showed Grammaticus an shuttered greeting room, typical of Nerthine houses, with a faience-tiled floor and mosaic walls that snagged in the candlelight like water. It also showed him his antagonist, an armored transhuman giant, and a standard human in black whose face Grammaticus couldn't see. even though the man wore no physical mask or hood. Your name is John Grammaticus, the giant asked. If you say so. I can get you to start again, if you prefer. Grammaticus shook his head. Spots of his blood dappled the tiles around him. Yes, my name is John Grammaticus. You already knew that. Look at me, the giant commanded. Grammaticus looked up. The giant was clad in power armor, the metal and ceramic war gear of an imperial Astartes. The armor was rich, a purple with silver edging. Green heraldry had been marked on the shoulder plates. The helm was the very latest, Ballantine Sout version. Dull red light shone inside the visor's slit. To the left of the towering Astartes stood the mind-hooded figure, small by comparison. No, me, the Astartes said. Look at me. Ignore my psyche. Better. Grammaticus began. Quiet, said the Astartes, raising a massive index finger. You are going to tell me what I want to know, not what you want to say. Grammaticus nodded. You've been looking for me. That's why you keep coming to the city. You knew I'd be here. Grammaticus nodded again. How did you know that? Because we invited you here, Grammaticus replied. You invited me here. Who's we? The cabal I work for. The Astartes turned to look at the hooded figure. Once again. The squeal speared into Grammaticus's head and made him shriek. What is the cabal? The Astartes asked. Grammaticus sobbed. He could barely answer. I don't know. They are eternal and they... That's really not very good, said the Astartes. Maybe I should just shoot you. That the cabal is the only hope, Grammaticus pleaded. Go on. Please. Stop it now, Sheer, the giant instructed. The squeal dialed back. Whose only hope? Mine. Yours. Mankind's. Grammaticus sighed. You are talking about the Imperium. Grammaticus shook his head. Broader than that. The species. The Imperium is the species, the giant replied. You don't really believe that, do you? Grammaticus asked. The worlds you've seen, the worlds you've been obliged to bring to compliance, worlds like this one, sapling shoots of human culture, cuttings from the root plant. The human race is far, far more than the militant tribe that is spilling from Terra to accomplish the Emperor's vision. The Astartes drew his bolt gun. Grammaticus did not actually see it happen. One moment the hefty weapon was holstered and the giant's hip, and the next it was on his steeled fist, aimed at Grammaticus's head. Are you insane? The giant asked. Are you blind? Look at me. I am an Astartes warrior, oathed to this moment and sworn to serve the Emperor. Why would you say something that precisely sounds so close to treason? I apologize if that's how it sounded. I meant no disrespect. The bolt gun remained aimed at him. You said this cabal of yours invited us here. Explain that. Grammaticus swallowed. Of all the Astartes legions, the cabal believes the Alpha Legion to be the most receptive to its messages. Why? In all truth, sir, I don't know. I am simply a go-between. The Cabal wanted the Alpha Legion to become involved in the compliance war here on Earth so that it could see the evidence for itself. See what, John? Grammaticus straightened slightly and looked boldly at the muzzle of the gun aimed at his face. What was at stake? The real enemy. Not the Nerthing, but the primordial annihilator that holds sway over them. The Astartes slowly lowered his weapon. You're talking about the warp magic. It's not, Grammaticus began. May I stand, sir? This floor is cold. The snouted helm nodded. Grammaticus rose to his feet. The Astartes still towered over him. It's not magic. It's not some fanciful trickery. It's the visible manifestation of a deep power, a universal power, pervasive abomination. Chaos, the Astartes replied. If that is what your masters wanted us to see, they have wasted your errand. We already know of chaos and have numbered in the litany of Xenos hazards. Grammaticus shook his head sadly. The simplest name for it is chaos. You've numbered it in the litany of Xenos hazards, have you? You only know it as a child knows the world. It has always been and will always be. And compared to it, nothing. Not mankind, not the Imperium, not the Emperor's mighty design, is of any consequence. Unchecked, it will poison and stagnate the galaxy. Fueled and driven, it will destroy everything. The Cabal wanted you to see it properly, to see it with your own eyes, so that you would take its message seriously. He paused. And it needed you to see it quickly. Why? Asked the giant. Because a great war is coming. A war? Against what? Against yourselves, said Grammaticus. The giant Astartes stared at Grammaticus for a moment. Grammaticus heard the dull click of his helmet vox operating. A private conversation was taking place. Grammaticus waited. The candle flames trembled. A tiny green house lizard scuttled across the tiled floor and up a wall. The giant turned back to look at Grammaticus. What is the message your cabal wants us to take so seriously? He asked. I don't know. I was simply sent here to propose a dialogue. The Astartes looked over at the hooded man. I am called for, he said. Take him to the parlor and stay with him. Do not allow him to play any tricks. The psyker nodded. The Astartes went over to the wooden gate, unbolted it, and stepped out into the sunlight. Just before the gate closed, Grammaticus saw that the intercoiled green reptiles painted on the wood were dragons, each one with 3 serpentine heads. Hydras. This way, said the psyker to Grammaticus. I love everything about John Grammaticus. It is interesting because, remember, he's a perpetual. They don't know it, but otherwise, why would you threaten to shoot him? John Grammaticus is a perpetual. He is an ever-living being. If he dies, he just comes back as another life. So for the Astartes to threaten him with a bolter to shoot him, okay, he just comes back. So, I mean, though he can, nobody wants to suffer pain they don't have to go through, obviously. But this is really interesting. If you watch the last reading from Legion, when Grammaticus is being chased down the alley on this planet and ends up in this house and is accosted by an Astartes, the Astartes from the Alpha Legion introduces himself as Alpharius. This is what makes Alpha Legion so interesting. They're a hive mind. I would liken them to a beehive, an anthill, a termite mound, these collectives of insects that have independent jobs yet function as one seamlessly. We are Alpharius. And for those who know, we are Alpharius Omegon. When you are brought into the Alpha Legion as an inductee, as a novice Astartes to go through the trials and be embedded with the Alpha Legion gene seed, it is again different than the other legions. When you look at the other legions of the Emperor, individuality is retained. I think that's best seen in Fulgrim's Legion, the Emperor's Children. While they are very good at making war, and they see war as an art because they're an artistic group, you can definitely pick out the personalities of Fulgrim's legionaries. Take Lucius, for example, the great swordsman, who fancies himself so great that he thinks he can challenge Fulgrim, the greatest swordsman of all time. And he is pompous, he is rude, and even though he is loyal to his lord Fulgrim, he has enough vanity and hubris in him to think he could one day best his Primarch. But Fulgrim lets it go because he thinks it's cute for some other reason. Or you look at, my goodness, what a name, Fabius Bile. Nobody knew he was a villain. But okay, so Fabius Bile, name notwithstanding, as an apothecary, he has access to physical abnormalities. And as chaos infects him, he becomes more fascinated with the extremes the human form and the Astartes form can take, and literally sets about to corrupt to perfection. He is obsessed with perfecting abomination, if that makes any sense. And we'll read about Fabius later when I feel real weird and want to go there, because Fabius Bile is a lot, and there's like 6 of him. That's a whole other story. Like, he cloned himself, made other Fabiuses to go out into the universe so he could just do experiments everywhere. Nobody knows where the actual Fabius Bile is. It's a whole thing, but I digress. That's a whole other story. I moved and it made my light flicker. I'm sorry. But with that, we look at a legion like the Emperor's Children against the Alpha Legion, one that celebrates art, individuality, personal achievement. And then the Alpha Legion's like, no, you're in the ant farm. You will have a distinct job, a distinct purpose, but if anyone was to just look at you from the outside, we're all the same. They do their best to physically, mentally, and spiritually be the same. I am Alpharius. You think Alpharius Omegon showed up to talk to John Grammaticus? They got people for that. But all of their people are them, and the reason Alpharius Omegon set their legion up that way is so that basically they are everywhere. If you encounter one Alpha Legion, you've encountered all of them. And that's kind of scary when you really think about it. I'm going to do a little bit more reading from Legion because it is such a good book. Again, can't read the whole thing. Love me, Black Library. I love you. But there is a story from the book The Primarchs, which is, I think there's 4 or 5 different Primarch stories in there during the Horus Heresy, but one of them is specifically about the Alpha Legion. I'm going to read that one in its entirety because it's so well told, but the twist and the turns help us as the reader really understand what is this entity that is the Alpha Legion. How deep does it go? Because the Alpha Legion, secrets and lies, as the book says, even within themselves, even though they are basically pseudo-clones of Alpharius Omegon, even though they've lost their individuality, they operate internally with secrets. Their secrets are so secret that maybe not even the twin Primarchs themselves know all the things happening in their legion. And what we just experienced with John Grammaticus is that they have become aware now of the existence of the Cabal. Remember, John Grammaticus is a human who for many centuries has been working on the behalf of the Eldar and Xenos races, who long ago saw that the evolution of man would spell doom for the universe. And the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or something like that. And they were hoping to curve the destiny of humanity by influencing. But humans gonna human, and humans did exactly what they want. That is one thing all sci-fi gets right every single time. Every time aliens or whatever show up to Earth and they're like, what is up with people? People gonna people. You know, I don't know if there's other life outside, on other planets. I hope there is, because Earth was a failure. I'm sorry, that was wrong, but it was. This is a failed experiment, we all know it. But if intelligent life was to show up here, we know what we would do. Humans gonna human. It just, all of a sudden, we would all be together on all things because nobody is going to out-human the humans. And the Cabal saw that millennia ago, beyond millennia ago. And they figured out early on that you can't tell humans what to do. So now that the humans in the Warhammer and the Warhammer 40k universe have advanced their technology, their lives, and everything so far, they're able to contact the warp. They're able to be in the warp to navigate space quicker. They are intruding into chaos, which could eventually awaken the primordial annihilator. You got Fulgrim out there trying to become the angel exterminatus, okay? So humans out there just, humaning it up, and they're going to ruin it for the whole universe. The Cabal is hoping to save the universe, and if it's an option, because they like John and some other humans, can we save the humans too? They're not out to destroy humanity, but if humanity gets in the way of the rest of the myriad races of the universe, humanity can go. That's how they feel. The reason the Cabal has chosen to use John Grammaticus to get Alpharius Omegon and Cabal connected is because Alpha Legion operates on secrets and lies. There are things that they know about the Emperor, the Imperium of Man, the Astartes, and the rest that other legions don't know because they like the secrets. Remember, the way that they conquer is not too far apart from how Lorgar conquers. Lorgar the Aurelian, if he can help it, doesn't make war, he goes full political. And he'll make war if he has to. He's a Primarch, he can fight. But he didn't fight if he didn't have to, because he sees human life as precious. But Alpha Legion, they see information as precious. And if you go in there with, bolters ablazing, you might destroy all the information. They would prefer to cede dissent, agreement, or whatever they need to do via political, religious means, or whatever it takes, rather than draw their bolters. They are real good at the espionage. They are just basically a legion of, what's the spy's name? No, it's not even a spy. They're like half John Wick, half James Bond, is what all of the Alpha Legion is. They can fight, but you don't want to fight them. Just give them your secrets. But even with all of their secrecy and knowledge and the things they have found out over time, they don't know that John Grammaticus is a perpetual. They do such a good job at finding out all the things, but this very important item, they don't know. How do they not know he's a perpetual? How do they not know the Emperor is a perpetual? Or that Vulcan, one of their brother Primarchs, is a perpetual? That is a very unique case, but unless you've seen somebody, croak and then come back as another body, how could you know that? And very few in the universe even know that perpetuals exist. Now, we're going to get more into Grammaticus' state as perpetual once we start reading from Vulcan. But even perpetuals have a weakness. And we'll talk about what that weakness is in Vulcan. Vulcan lives. Vulcan lives. If you know, you know. But even though the Emperor is a pseudo-god to the human race in this world, he still has a weakness. And even the Emperor knows that, which is why I believe the Emperor never intended himself to be God. Because if God can be dethroned, if God can be killed, if God has a weakness, then he was never God. His goal was to unite humanity in such a way that as a unified force, nothing could come against humanity. The problem is the Emperor was willing to make any sacrifice necessary to make that happen. And remember, he at this time has taken his happy self back to Terra and is doing his experiments under the Himalaya Mountains in the Imperial Palace. And the legions are left to follow Horus. Alpha Legion is one of the interesting ones in the choosing of sides in the Horus Heresy. I would liken them to the White Scars and Jagatai Khan. Everyone assumed that the White Scars had betrayed the Emperor because they didn't openly come out as pro-Imperium during this period. They were pro-humanity and pro-themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean anti-Emperor, and I would put Alpha Legion in the same banks, because when they encounter the Cabal and fully understand the role humanity could play in the universe, they are still pro-Emperor, but they're pro-best outcome for humanity as well. And what they learn from the Cabal actually makes them more loyal to the Emperor. But they have to choose to be the Legion that will do what the Emperor won't do and will listen to what the Emperor has closed his ears to. That's a dangerous place to be, because in the Iron Fist of the Imperium, that's heresy. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you made it to this point in the video, please like, comment, subscribe, suggest more. Thank you to my viewer who suggested Legion. I forgot how great this book was, and it is so good. We're going to go a little bit further into it because I want to wrap a story. I think I'm kind of getting my format of how I want to do these readings and discussions. Like, let's get all the way through something and, keep putting our story together. So I hope you're enjoying it. This close to 500, y'all. Y'all are doing me a solid. I appreciate you. I love you. Mwah. I hit my mic. Put that back. But please keep commenting, sharing. Once we hit that 500 on the YouTube, first nerdy prize goes out. And the numbers are going up on my other social media, on the Instagram and the Twitter. And and the Facebook page. So once those get to 500, a nerdy prize representing them will go out as well. No entry needed, just subscribe and I'll pick somebody. Please have a US address. Shipping be high these days. Gas prices, man. So as always, let me know down in the comments once I get through this one, where should I go next? There are so many places in the Imperium of Man. I'm still hanging out in the Horus Heresy because it's my favorite period, but I am reading Death Watch, which is one of the newer books. Obviously, I'm in a hotel, had to take a work trip. I'm going to read it more tomorrow at the airport, but yeah, once I, get as far into the Horus Heresy as I want to, I'm going to start going into some of the more modern Warhammer and Warhammer 40k lore, because I know some things are happening. I don't know how I feel about them. I don't know how I feel about the Emperor coming back. That was kind of like the whole shtick. Although, as someone who was a theater and English major, I also respect that media has to evolve over the years so that more audiences can enjoy it. It's okay for things to get remade and redone and revamped. It's okay. Retconning is fine, because what appealed to one group of people in a generation is going to be different than another. Art is a direct product of the environment in which it's created. And when that environment changes, for it to reach a new audience, you have to tweak the story. Now, I saw that they were going to remake the Lord of the Rings movies, and people were like, oh my God, the Peter Jackson movies were perfect. And they were. I love them. I'm not going to say no to another one. What is a new generation's perspective on these stories? What I saw and felt might not be what they saw and felt. I'm here for it. Y'all know that eventually they're going to remake the Harry Potter movies. Y'all know that? Yeah, it's gonna happen. I'm here for it, especially since now they'd be remaking them after the books are finished instead of doing it before she finished the books. Every great piece of art is reiterated over and over, and it's the highest compliment to the creator of that art that new generations, new readers, new viewers, new experiencers, is that a word, experiencer? It is now. That people who have new experience with the art are seeing and feeling something different. That's what makes a work timeless. There's a reason there are classics of literature that we're all required to read in school. Because even though the book was written 50 years ago, 100, 200, 500 years ago, hashtag Iliad and Odyssey, the oldest novels that we know of, even though they're technically poems, whatever, there's a reason that we have to read those. Because those are stories where we can still find threads, lessons, commonalities in society throughout all of time. So let us be grateful that the world caters to nerds and we can see constant evolving of these great works, and that these authors, these artisans, these great men and women of script and prose, that they're continuing to be celebrated in new art. It's a good thing. So let's remember, this is the channel where we just go yay to all of it. There's no criticism here. All right, we like it all. The well-rounded nerd. I will see all of you in the next one.